God spoke in a loud voice. He said to me, there will be no World Cup in 2026. He said, because life will not be business as usual on earth. This is what he said.
Welcome to God's Voice Daily. I'm your host, Vladimir Proknevsky, and this is the channel where I share daily phone calls with people from around the world who've had real supernatural encounters with Jesus, angels, demons, and everything in between. Some of these calls go on to become full episodes on our main show called God's Voice Today, but here you will hear them raw and unfiltered, just the way they happened. So without any further ado, let's dive into today's featured call. Enjoy. Well, Joshua, tell me about your testimony. I'd love to hear your testimony.
Okay, I'll go straight to it. In the year 2000, that's the year I became a Christian. And I'd like to tell you about a supernatural experience that I had. I was walking with my fellow Christians one day and in the street. And while we were walking, something caught my attention. An angel as tall as a building, if I may say, or as tall as the tallest tree, was walking next to us. It was so huge, and it was carrying a sword, and it kept looking around as if it was guarding us and protecting us. But I didn't say anything then to my fellow Christians because, I didn't know what to make of it. That was in the year 2000.
So they didn't see the angel. You're the only one that saw it.
They didn't see. From what I perceive, I'm the only one who saw it. So that was kind of like one of the first encounters or spiritual encounters that I was having as a Christian since I became a Christian. When you saw that angel, did you see a lot of details? Like, can you see what that was? It male, female angel? From the, if I can say, I didn't see the details, but I know it was carrying a sword, and I think it was male. From
carrying a sword, and it was a male. Cool, interesting.
Yes. So from the aura he gave, he was a male. He was a male, and not a female. So he was just walking around, looking as if he was looking for demons. If any demons wants to come away, like he wants to cut it down with that sword. So
it's like a warring angel, right? Ready for battle.
I believe so. So in 2003, by this time in the church where I was attending, I was an assistant pastor. So it happened one night in a vision, in a dream. I was sleeping and I saw the future. That's like in this dream, I was in a field, an open field, and it was dark. It was at night. I looked down to the ground and I realized the entire field, the entire ground, it's like I could instinctively know in that moment that the whole earth had burned. And I went to find a hill so that I can climb it and see if I can find any human being. I climbed the hill, I looked around, and I saw no one. And the atmosphere, as I was standing there, it was a terrifying one. It was very scary to be where I was. So I looked up to the sky, and I saw the stars. And in me, I had an inner knowledge that believers, before the destruction that I'm witnessing, there are believers who had been taken up to heaven to escape the destruction that I was seeing. So immediately I woke up. And when I woke up, it was as if I'm coming from, I was there, literally. It's as if like God took me to the future to see the future, and then he brought me back.
Wow.
That's how it felt.
What did the future look like as far as if you had to put a time? I know no one knows the day or the hour, but
yes.
Did it look like it was around the corner?
Honestly, then I didn't had a sense of the time, to be honest. I just knew this was going to happen in the future. Then I didn't have the sense of time, if I may say, the time this future was going to take place. So in 2011, if I can be quick because of the 15 minutes.
Oh, you're good. Keep going.
Oh, okay. Thank you. In 2011, so I've jumped now from 2003, now we're in 2011. Again, in a vision, in a dream. I must say this before I mention this vision. I was an assistant pastor in 2003. And then in 2010, I decided to resign. And this is what I had in mind. God, I've served you. I've done my best. Now I want to focus on myself. That was 2010. 2011, in a vision, in a dream, I see myself in a court. And again, I say, instinctively, I knew I was in a court in heaven, in a heaven's court. And we were standing outside the door of the courtroom. And there was this person, a male, who was in front of me. And the way he was shaking with fear, he couldn't hold his body. Like he was shaking and it was visible. You could see it. He was so afraid. It was as if he knew that if he goes inside the court, he was not going to make it. So he went inside the court, and I don't know what happened to him. And then it was my turn. By the way, the court proceedings, they just took seconds. They were so fast. So it was my turn. I just saw myself sitting down, and in the chair where usually the judge sits, there was God. But he was so huge, and he was translucent, like he was transparent, like you couldn't see his details. But instinctively, I knew this was God. But he was so huge, like in that seat. And on my left, there was Jesus, and he had a normal human body, if I may say. And on my right, and he was on my left, but if you look at it from God's view, he was on his right.
Yeah.
Yes. So on my right, there was the devil, Satan, and he had a file of my sins, and these files were huge. And he had a file of my sins there, and he was ready to accuse me before the judge. And I saw Jesus take a step forward towards God, towards the Father, or towards the judge. And right then I was acquitted of all the sins that were in the file that Satan was carrying in his hand. I was acquitted. And immediately I went up. Now, going up, I was going to heaven now. And anyone who doesn't make it in that court, like it is in court, I don't know how it is there in America, but in South Africa where we are, you see, if someone, if I can say, if someone is sentenced, or there's stairs that go down, I don't know if they are holding stairs there, then they get transported to prison. So it was like in this heaven's court, if you don't make it, you go down those stairs, but to hell. And if you make it, you go up to heaven. So I was in heaven. And then in heaven, there were people. I saw school kids. I saw people who I knew by looking at them, and they were wearing if I may say, the clothes that represented, where maybe they died from. Like I saw school kids and I saw people who had died from jail because they were wearing jail clothes, but they were there in heaven, they had made it. So as I was looking at them, then Jesus appears in front of me. It's like I left him there at the court, but then I found him here. He appears in front of me. He was Middle Eastern, dark brown hair up to the shoulders, well trimmed beard, like neat white robe. But one thing that took my attention about him, I was amazed. I was just looking at him because it was my first time to see Jesus in a vision, in a dream. But one thing that caught my attention was his eyes. I couldn't keep my eyes off his eyes. I don't know if it's the right word because English is not my first language. I was mesmerized. I was taken. Like I loved who I saw. My Creator was standing there right next to me or right in front of me. So without opening his mouth, he then started to call, like he gave commands. And I saw, without opening his mouth, like through his thoughts, then some chariots started appearing and coming and standing in front of me. Like many chariots, I couldn't count them. And these chariots had blocks of wood, well-polished blocks of woods. They just were standing. They just appeared. No one was driving them. They just came, these chariots, and they just stood next to me, in front of me. And he said to me, and so when I was looking at this block of woods, I noticed that they didn't have names, but there were these few that had some names, like the names of people on earth. He said to me, "You have saved few people." And then he looked to the ones that didn't have names, and he said to me, "You must fill all of this block of woods with souls." In my mind, I assumed God wants me to start a church. I woke up. When I woke up again, like the other vision, it was as if I'm coming from heaven. In fact, I believe I came from there. And when I woke up, I was just filled with His presence all around me, inside me. I was just filled with His presence. Because of time, in 2016, I started a church. So there was a house. I called people together to pray for them. I did this for about a month. But every time I went there to share the word of God and to pray with them, I never had peace. So finally, I just tell the congregants that I quit. Like I'm no longer going to go there. They no longer have to come and gather together for prayer. So I quit because I didn't feel good about it. So as I was leaving in the yard there outside, so this old woman comes to me, asks for a prayer, and I pray for her. As I laid my hand on her head, and I'm praying for her. As I prayed, it's something like I'm closing my eyes as I'm praying, and this electric shock. Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm still there. Go ahead.
Yes. So I feel something like an electric shock on my hand. Mm-hmm. And I opened my eyes because I was closing my eyes. And this old woman's eyes are closed. And I look next to her, there Jesus. Now I'm not sleeping, I'm not dreaming, I'm awake. In fact, I'm outside. There Jesus appears in front of me again, wearing a long king's robe. It had some light blue, some navy bluish colors. It went all the way down to his feet. He had broad shoulders. He looked so strong. He looked at me because I looked down to his feet and then I went back to look at his face. He looked at me and he smiled. He didn't say anything. But instinctively, I knew he smiled as if saying to me, well done. In other words, I heard his heart stopping the church, not continuing with it, because that's not the plan that he had for me. And then another day, I would later on have another vision where I go to heaven and then I see him wearing the same robes that I saw him in when I was awake. I see him wearing the same king's robe. And then he tells me there, I'm cutting it short because of time. He tells me there that you are going to introduce me as the soon coming king to the world. In other words, he even said that I'm not supposed to open a church. I must just introduce him and tell the world that he's coming. That's 2016. 2017, in a vision, in a dream, I see myself, I'm in the throne room of God in heaven. Jesus is right in front of me, sitting on his a chair or throne, with his armrest on the throne, with his arm resting on the armrest. And he looks at me serious, and I could see around the chair or the throne where he was, there was some fog on the floor, like a mist. And there was a sound, and this sound was just like the sound of a war, like something was coming. And when I looked at his face, he was wearing a white robe. He looked so serious. He looked at me without smiling. He was so serious, and without opening his mouth again, he says with his mind, and I could hear him so loud and clear. He says, I am coming soon. So remember, his arms are on the arm's rest, both of his arms. He then stands up, but before he could fully stand up, as he's standing up, power from him comes from him and blows me backwards out of heaven through the sky in seconds. And I land on my bed and I wake up immediately. And I don't know why I said these words. I cried because I was just feeling his presence in that moment. I cried when I woke up. So my wife was sleeping next to me. And she asked me, what's wrong? And I just found myself saying these words to her. I saw a man in heaven. Until today, I don't know why I said those words, but that's what I said to her. Then here comes now the moment. I'm skipping a lot here. In 2018, now, this is like the main vision. So I used to think, Vlad, that I was going to grow up and become an old man as a Christian, maybe pass away in my 90s. But what happened in 2018, first thing in a vision, in a dream, God spoke in a loud voice. He said to me, no man, he said to me, there will be no man's World Cup in 2026. He said in a loud voice. I didn't see him, but I heard his voice. He said there will be no World Cup in 2026. He said because life will not be business as usual on earth. This is what he said. And then I woke up.
2026, coming up World Cup, right? Which is the United States.
Yes. Which is supposed to be in the United States, yes. So me, I'm not a soccer fan, and I did not know when maybe the last or the next coming World Cup would be, because I don't follow soccer. I'm not a fan. But then I researched 2026, is there going to be a World Cup? I'm awake now, so I'm researching. And then I found out, yes, it's going to be a World Cup 2026 in the United States. Okay, fast forward, still 2018. One early morning, I wake up, switch the light on, and early morning, very early morning, then I'm reading my Bible. And while I'm reading my Bible, Jesus appears, not in a dream, I'm awake. Jesus appears in front of me. So I'm looking at him face to face. He's wearing a white robe. And then this is what he says, Vlad. And by the way, mind you, I didn't know much about what he was telling me. The topic that he was going to talk about. He said to me, from the time Israel became a nation, this is Jesus talking. From the time Israel became a nation in 1948, there will be 77 years to the Exodus. It doesn't use the word rapture. It uses the word Exodus. He says, I knew he was talking about the rapture. And then he says, on the Feast of Trumpets of the 23rd and the 24th of September 2025, I will come to take my church. And then he says, in these 2 days, no one knows the day or the hour I will come.
So
and then he says,
September, yes. What's September?
The 23rd and the 24th. It's like
23rd and 24th.
Yes, the Feast of Trumpets is actually a 2-day celebration, if I may say. It's actually, it falls on one of these 2 days, let me put it that way.
So the rapture would happen either on any of those dates? Is that what he was saying?
That's what he was saying. He said, in these 2 days, no one knows the day or hour I will come. And then he said, then there will be a 7-year tribulation on earth. And then he said, then on the 15th of September, on the Day of Atonement, that's a feast. On the Day of Atonement, on the 15th of September 2032, will be my second coming to earth as king. After saying these words, sorry?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
After saying these words, he disappeared. And I was left amazed because I didn't know much about the rapture, second coming, tribulation. The last thing in that moment that I knew, that I could remember, is that when I was a youth beginning to be a Christian, a pastor did explain that there will be in the future some tribulation that will happen and Christians will go through it, and that's all I knew. I didn't know there was a plan of escape. I might have heard about it here and there, but I really couldn't understand the concept of rapture until this moment. Because from this moment that Jesus appeared and said this to me, I then went deep to study, to research, to find out exactly what is the rapture that the Lord was talking about. I even started to research about the feasts, the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement. Like I began to learn, and I started to learn even that there are actually 7, and God had already fulfilled, Jesus had already fulfilled 4 of them. Passover, unleavened bread, first fruit, and Pentecost. And now 3 are left. So then the next coming one that he will fulfill is the Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, and Tabernacles. I didn't know all of these things. I had to then study from this moment. So of late, I know this is very controversial, but I've got scriptures that God, he said to me one day to look at Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah 55, where he says, I forgot this scripture. He says, no word will leave me and come back to me void. And then after saying to me this to me, he said that he will begin to teach me, like he will begin to think through my mind. I'm not God, but he would then put thoughts in my mind. He would then speak to me so that I could understand more about the subject. So he took me to 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 1 to 11. Here we see the previous rapture that took place, the past rapture. And then, Bible interprets Bible. In the past rapture of Elijah, the previous rapture of Elijah, we see there that the prophets would then come to Elijah and Elisha, and they would say to him, do you know that your master will be taken from you today? And Elisha would say to them, yes, I know. And then prophets from another place and so on and so forth, they would ask him the same question. He would say, yes, I know. And then finally Elijah says to Elisha, before I'm taken from you, tell me, what do you want me to do for you? So I see the rapture not being a day of the rapture of Elijah, not being a mystery to them. In fact, God had revealed to the prophets, to Elisha and to Elijah. So God showed me that even in the coming rapture, he would do the same thing. So I don't know if I should continue or time is, I'm already past the time.
No, you're good. You're good. So what you're saying is that rapture will happen before the FIFA World Cup, right? In the United States here. And so the reason why it won't happen.
Which is in 2025, yes.
So rapture is September 2025, FIFA World Cup, yes. I think it's like June or something, 2026.
Yes.
So interesting. I mean, there's some bold statements for sure.
Yes, I know how controversial this topic is. Yes, I know. People
will definitely will have some things to say in the comments, but interesting. Okay, go on. I just interrupted you. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Okay. I'll tell you what he meant when the reason why he told me about the World Cup. So what God was saying to me, because after the rapture, life would seem, because if you look at 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, from verse 1 to 4, I think from verse 5, from verse 5. So people will shout peace and security, and while they are shouting that in the world, destruction will take over the world. So after the rapture, when the Antichrist steps in, he would then, with charisma, convince people that there will be peace, that things will be okay. So I don't know for how long that will last, but what God was saying to me that by 2026, June, the world will be a mess. It will be destroyed. In other words, there will be so much chaos and destruction that they will not be able to hold the World Cup. So if I may go to this scripture, Matthew 24:36, people will say, no one knows the day or the hour. I mean, I've looked it up. I know what the Lord told me, but I've looked it up, even a simple Google, where it explains, some explanations. They say that no one knows the day or the hour is actually a Hebrew idiom. It's a Hebrew idiom. In other words, it's a Hebrew idiom for the Feast of Trumpets. So what Jesus was saying there is that he would come, he would come to fetch his bride or the church in the Feast of Trumpets. And if you go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 51 and verse 52, Paul actually is agreeing with Jesus, because Paul talks about the last trump. Now, many people, when they see the last trump, they run to Revelations and they say, this is the last trump, the seventh trumpet, the angels will sound in the tribulation. And this is not true. The last trump is actually, in the Feast of Trumpets, they will then blow the trumpet 100 times, 99 times, and there was this one last one, and it is called, the last blow is called the last trump. So what Paul is saying is actually in agreement to what Jesus is saying, because Jesus is saying, no one knows the day or the hour. But the interpretation there is that is the Feast of Trumpets, because that is the feast when no one knows the day or the hour. That's why it is celebrated on 2 days. It's actually 1 day, but there is 2 days, because they never knew, like those who used to observe the new moon to see on which day it would fall. They put 2 days so that they could first confirm that the new moon is going to fall on the first one, or the first day, or the second day. Then they would celebrate the Feast of Trumpets. So it's actually a feast called No One Knows the Day or the Hour, but everybody just takes it literally the way it is and just say, no one knows the day or the hour. If you look at 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 1 to 4, Paul says to the Thessalonians, it is not necessary for you to know about the times and the dates of the day of the Lord. And I can say, when he says it's not necessary, he is talking to that church, because the day of the Lord would actually occur 2,000 years later, or almost 2,000 years later. So it was an event that was hidden to them, but that would be revealed to the end church. Because you see there, I think it's verse 4, Paul says, that day will not be a surprise. It will not surprise believers like a thief. It will surprise those who are in darkness, but those who are in the light, it do not surprise them. If you look at Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25, there the book of Hebrews say, gather together, do not neglect gathering together, all the more as you see the day approaching. And I put it to you, it is not a random day. It's a day that people would literally see that day is approaching. Because there it's talking about the coming of the Lord. And you look at Joel 2, let me go to Acts chapter 1, verse 6 and 7. Jesus tells the disciples, they're asking, are you going to be at this time, king of Israel? And he says to them, it is not for you to know the times that the Father has set. And then the following verse after that, he says to them, you go throughout from Israel throughout the world of the gospel. So in other words, even them, because the event would occur 2,000 years later. So that event, about the times, the revelation will be given, because if you even look at the book of Daniel, Daniel is told, after being given end-time revelation, he's told, to seal the revelation. In other words, he's been told this will be sealed until the time of the end. So there would be a revelation that would come to the end time church in the time of the end. So the 12 disciples, Jesus is saying to them, your role is to be my witnesses in the world of the gospel. But in the times when I will come and be king in Israel wouldn't be your concern. And can I make an example, if I may? I don't know if this is going to be allowed. In 2019, I was watching TV and I saw a man from America, and I don't agree with all his teachings, but there's one thing. His name was Tom Horn. I think he spoke about the wormwood prophecy, and he said that 2029, this asteroid has been located. I mean, he's saying it will hit Earth in 2029. Then he counted back 2.5 years because he believed that would happen. Revelation 8, which is the asteroid, would happen in the middle of the tribulation. So he then says he counts 3.5 years back and it lands in 2025. We don't, he never mentioned the day or the month, but he mentioned the year. And I tell you, though I don't agree with everything he teaches, but in terms of him, because he believed that 2025, I know now is no longer with us on earth, he believed that 2025 would be the year of the beginning of tribulation. In other words, the rapture would happen and then the tribulation would happen. And that man was right. So my last, okay, if I may say, sorry, my last vision, I had it, I think it was early this year. The Lord appeared to me and he said, shout it from the rooftop. And that is why I decided I'm going to call Vlad, and everybody else, who agrees, who believes. And I'm putting no obligation on you, Vlad, no pressure. I'm at peace. I'm
gonna publish it. I'd like to put things out. I don't like to censor anybody or anything. If you feel that strongly, I'll put it out there. But just know there'll be a lot of heat coming your way. You ready for this?
I'm ready for it, Vlad.
Yeah, I'll definitely put it out. I know the time is near, but people are sensitive when it comes down to the day of the hour. But yes, hey, very compelling. Very interesting story, and I appreciate you sharing it, Joshua. I'll definitely put it out there. But I can just already see the comments. I can hear the clicking of the keyboard.
Yeah.
But hey, I like to put this is interesting dreams and visions, and hey, I don't understand everything. I know the time is near. I don't know how I feel about the exact time, day, and hour, but it's only like 3 months from now, so I guess time will show, right?
Time will show, and I'm here for it. And I think your father, because I would hear you sometimes speak on a podcast that your father senses that the rapture would happen in his lifetime. He might not have said the exact time, but I tell you, the old man is right.
Sounds good. Well, Joshua, I appreciate you calling in.
Thank you.
Very interesting conversation. I'll definitely publish it, but
thank you.
Just know the heat will come. But hey, in 3 months we'll know, right?
Definitely.
God bless you, Joshua. Thank you so much. Take care.
Great talking to you.
Likewise. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. If this call caught your attention, wait until you see what's coming up next. It should be on the screen right now. Go ahead and click on that video, and I'll see you there.